There are farmhouses scattered across the Japanese countryside where dogs have been kept in good health for generations without a single trip to a pet store, using nothing but what was already sitting in the kitchen. Not because anyone there distrusted modern medicine, because these habits worked, cost almost nothing, and got passed down the same way a recipe gets passed down, one household teaching the next. I'm going to walk through what those habits actually were, why they held up, and how to try each one yourself tonight if your own dog needs it. This is just one of the habits I've come across so far. There are others. If you'd like to see them as I find them, hit the subscribe button. Now let's get back to the video. None of this replaces a vet, and that needs to be said plainly before anything else. A dog with open sores, or one that stays itchy and miserable no matter what gets tried, isn't dealing with something a kitchen remedy can fix. That might be an infection, a deep allergy, or mange, and the responsible thing is getting him real help instead of stubbornly working through home treatments while he suffers. Keep that in mind through everything that follows, because a couple of these methods are only meant for the everyday stuff, the small hot spot, the dry patch, the dull coat that never quite looks right. Start with what to do the moment a dog's already worked one spot raw, the kind of angry, red, weeping patch that shows up when he's been licking or chewing at the same area for days. A small amount of plain coconut oil, nothing added to it, rub gently onto that spot, cools the skin down and lays a light protective layer over it. If the dog licks it off, which he almost certainly will, that's not a problem, since it's just a wholesome oil with nothing in it that could hurt him. This isn't going to cure anything serious on its own. For a small, early spot though, it's a real comfort, and it's probably already sitting in the kitchen cabinet. Trimming the fur back around the area helps the skin dry out and breathe, since a hot spot kept damp under matted hair tends to stay raw a lot longer than one that gets some air. If the spot keeps spreading, or starts weeping heavily, or just won't settle down after several days, that's the point where it's moved past anything oil can handle, and it's time for a vet visit instead. For a dog whose whole coat is itchy, not just one spot, the answer traditionally used across a lot of Japanese farmhouses was an oatmeal bath, and this one genuinely does something rather than just offering comfort. Plain oats, the same kind sold for breakfast with nothing added, ground fine in a mill or a grinder, release a soothing quality into water that's been used to calm irritated skin on people for a very long time, and it works the same way on a dog. Stir a cup or two of the ground oats into a tub of water until it turns slightly milky, and let the dog stand and soak in it for about 10 minutes if he'll tolerate it. The oatmeal settles a calm film over the skin that pulls some of the heat and the itch out of it. The water has to stay cool, or barely lukewarm at the absolute warmest. Hot water on itchy, inflamed skin makes everything worse, since it draws blood up toward the surface and inflames the area further instead of calming it. Pat the dog dry afterward rather than rubbing hard, and most dogs come out of a bath like this noticeably calmer. This can be repeated every few days while things are bad, and plenty of dogs eventually learn to stand patiently through it once they realize it actually helps them feel better. If any of this is proving useful, it's probably worth sticking around for the rest of it, since this channel covers a lot of these old, low-cost methods on a regular basis. So if you want to see more of this, subscribe so you do not miss it. For the dog whose paws or ears carry that warm, slightly sour smell, the kind that shows up in the damp places where moisture tends to sit without drying out, a weak rinse of apple cider vinegar, cut roughly by half with warm water and dabbed on gently with a cloth, has long been used to freshen those spots up. The mild acidity doesn't sit well with the kind of yeast buildup that causes that smell in the first place. This one comes with a serious warning attached, and it matters. Vinegar, even watered down significantly, should never touch skin that's been chewed raw, or is open or bleeding in any way. It's still an acid, and it will sting badly and cause real pain instead of relief. It's meant only for skin that's whole but smells off, never for a wound. If the ears themselves look deeply red, inflamed, or clearly painful, that's an ear infection, not a smell problem, and no home rinse is going to fix that. Drying the paws and ears thoroughly after a bath, or after a dog's been out in wet grass or swimming, does far more to prevent this kind of trouble than any rinse does to cure it once it's already taken hold, since that dampness between the toes and down inside the ear is exactly where the problem gets its start. For the dog that licks and chews more from boredom or restlessness than from any real itch, which happens more often than most owners realize, the fix is about as simple as it gets. A large raw carrot, frozen ahead of time on a hot day, gives a dog something genuinely satisfying to gnaw on, keeps him occupied for a good stretch, and does no harm at all. A bored dog tends to find his own mischief, and more often than not, that mischief is his own paw. Something honest to chew on solves half of that particular problem by itself. Moving from easing the skin to what actually builds a healthy coat from the inside, diet turns out to matter more than any bath or rinse ever could. A dog fed a plain, dry diet with nothing added tends to grow a poor, dull coat that stays prone to trouble. A dog getting some real fat and proper nourishment grows a thick, glossy coat and skin that holds up on its own, and that's the strongest, longest-lasting defense against itching there is, well beyond anything applied from the outside. Traditional farm dogs in Japan typically ate well off whatever scraps and trimmings came off the family's own table, and they were healthier for it. The main thing that builds a good coat is fat, specifically the right kind of oils, and there are a few plain, reliable ways to work them into a dog's diet. Fish stands out as one of the best. A small tin of plain sardines mixed into food 2 or 3 times a week delivers a rich dose of the kind of oils that build a glossy coat and healthy skin, as long as they're the plain kind packed in water with no salt or sauce added. If a dog turns his nose up at fish, a plain cooked egg does nearly as good a job. A splash of homemade bone broth poured over regular food is one of the better additions too, made simply by simmering chicken or beef bones down in water, rich in the kind of nutrients that support both skin and joints. None of this should get piled onto a dog all at once, or every single day. A dog's stomach needs time to adjust to richer food, and rushing it tends to cause a different kind of mess entirely that nobody enjoys cleaning up. Working it in slowly, a little fish one day, an egg another, a splash of broth on a third, while pulling back a bit of the regular dry food to make room, keeps a dog from just gaining extra weight on top of everything else. Done steadily over a few weeks, the coat comes in visibly glossier, and the skin settles down, and that overall condition ends up being the truest shield against itching that exists. 2 warnings belong here, and they matter more than everything else covered in this video combined. Any bone broth made for a dog has to be made from scratch. Plain bones and water simmered down, nothing else added. Store-bought broth made for people should never be used, and nothing should ever be seasoned, because that kind of broth is almost always cooked with onion and garlic. Both are genuinely toxic to dogs, not mildly bad for them, capable of doing real and lasting harm. No onion, no garlic, ever. Not in broth, not in food, not as a scrap dropped from the table. The second warning can kill a dog outright, so it's worth remembering clearly. A sweetener called xylitol, sometimes labeled birch sugar, shows up in a long list of sugar-free products, certain peanut butters, sugar-free yogurts, some candies and gums. It's deadly to dogs even in tiny amounts, capable of destroying the liver and killing quickly. Before giving a dog any peanut butter, yogurt, or similar treat, checking the label every single time and confirming there's no xylitol or birch sugar listed takes just a few seconds and genuinely saves lives. Brushing deserves its own mention here, since it's half of what keeps a coat healthy, and it's the part most people forget about entirely. Regular brushing, especially for longer-haired dogs, pulls dead hair and dirt out of the coat, spreads a dog's own natural skin oils down through the fur to keep it glossy, and lets the skin breathe properly underneath. A well-brushed dog runs into far fewer problems with mats, trapped moisture, and general itching than one that goes without. There's a second benefit too, since most dogs genuinely enjoy the attention that comes with it, making those few minutes a kindness a dog actually feels, not just a chore. Keeping a dog's bedding clean matters just as much, since bedding collects dirt and old hair over time, and becomes exactly the kind of place fleas would settle in and lay eggs if given the chance. Washing it regularly and shaking it out denies fleas that foothold before it ever becomes a real problem. A clean, well-brushed dog eating decent food is most of the way to a healthy coat before anything else even gets applied. There's a lot of bad advice floating around about fleas and ticks specifically, and some of it does real damage. A claim that comes up constantly is that feeding a dog vinegar, brewer's yeast, or even garlic makes his blood taste bad enough that fleas and ticks avoid him entirely. That isn't true, and repeating it doesn't do anyone's dog any favors, especially given that garlic is itself toxic to dogs, meaning that particular piece of advice causes harm on 2 fronts at once. There's no spoonful of anything that shields a dog from ticks. Ticks are no small matter either, since they carry genuine disease, including Lyme, capable of leaving a dog seriously ill for life or worse, with some of those diseases capable of passing to people too. This is the one area where being firm matters most. Protection against ticks needs to come from real, proven medicine prescribed by a vet, used consistently in any area where ticks are a known problem, alongside running hands over a dog's coat after time spent in brush or tall grass, and removing any ticks found right away. Good food, clean bedding, and regular brushing all genuinely help reduce the odds of fleas settling in, since a clean, well-kept dog is a less appealing environment for them, and that part is worth doing regardless. A fine-tooth comb run through the coat catches fleas early and can be combed straight into a dish of soapy water, an old and honest way to knock their numbers down directly on the dog. If fleas have already taken hold, they're living in the house and the bedding just as much as on the dog himself, so washing bedding in hot water and cleaning the areas where a dog sleeps matters as much as treating the dog directly. None of that, though, replaces real medicine when it comes to ticks and the disease they carry. To pull all of it together, a small amount of coconut oil eases a raw hot spot early on. A cool oatmeal bath calms a whole itchy, miserable coat. A weak apple cider vinegar rinse freshens paws and ears that smell off, but never touches broken skin. A frozen carrot handles the dog chewing from boredom rather than any real itch. Sardines, a plain egg, and homemade unseasoned bone broth build a genuinely healthier coat from the inside over a few weeks. Onion, garlic, and anything containing xylitol stay away from a dog entirely, always. Regular brushing and clean bedding prevent a lot of trouble before it starts. Fleas get handled with cleanliness and a fine comb, but ticks need real vet-prescribed protection, not a kitchen remedy. And any dog that stays genuinely miserable, with sores that won't heal or a problem that home care clearly isn't touching, needs a vet, since that's the kindest option there is, and nothing here stands in for it. If your own dog deals with any of this, drop it in the comments. The itching, the fleas, the dull coat, whatever it happens to be, along with anything that's actually worked for you. Those comments genuinely shape what gets covered next. Subscribing means catching the next one, which is going to cover how old farmhouses kept barn cats around for pest control without a single chemical involved, the same way it's been done for generations before any of us were around to see it.